Welcome back to MLive's Dungeon of Doom podcast. We're out of the regular season and away from our regular weekly mailbag podcast. And today, we come from the long-awaited day, Brad Holmes' year-end press conference. Here's Kory Woods.
What up, though? How you doing?
I almost missed your intro.
Oh, yeah, you know what? Hey, it's all good. I mean, we're not even in the real regular season flow of things, so I guess we can go off script.
Yeah, 6 p.m. on a Thursday.
Yeah, I mean...
But yeah, we just got done talking with Brad Holmes. More than 40 minutes, I'd say. I think it was a lot of offensive line topics covered. A lot of Frank Ragnow, Taylor Decker talk, some OC talk, some David Montgomery stuff. Yeah, you could write non-committal on just about every headline that comes out of this thing. It was very non-committal, and I know fans kind of got accustomed to like the WWE style promo from Brad Holmes, but like, let's be real. That wasn't going to happen today. This was more or less what I expected. Humble in the beginning, humble in grading himself, kind of humble in some of the missed opportunities. You know, didn't veer away from the fact that this season was an abject failure in every sense, but just not the no doubt answers that many thought they were going to get that we knew weren't going to happen today.
And there are going to be, in my opinion, I know there are going to be some people that are going to take issue that they didn't hear any definitive answers in one way or another regarding some things. But there was one point that Brad said something in that presser that I really liked. And I kind of paraphrases the entire press conference for me. If he had all of the answers to what needs to be fixed right now, you should be concerned.
Yeah.
And the fact that he doesn't have the answers, he's self-reflecting, he's taking accountability, he's talking about going back to the drawing board and figuring things out. Yeah. To me, hearing that should have fans more optimistic than concerned, because he's at least now saying in his own way, what I did not work.
Yeah, for sure. You know, with some of the same stuff, you know, the pass rusher stuff, he's like, I don't know how many teams have 2 double-digit sack getters. Like, you could almost drink because we knew that was coming. Yeah. But I would say the thing that, and it's obviously not the biggest topic coming out of this, but I think we'll start with it, is one of the last questions you got was about David Montgomery, and you just wrote about it. And it seems like we weren't taking crazy pills and thinking that maybe could be the last we see of David Montgomery in Detroit.
You know, and again, that was a big thing for me. Yeah. I've been talking about it all season. I said that I would be 60-40 that he's gone. The 40 means the 60 meaning he's gone, the 40 means that he's saying. And to me, I don't want to kind of like, you know, overreach what he said, but I kind of got that feeling from what he was saying. It's like there at least is an idea that he could not be here.
Yeah.
And I think it also depends on a few things, how they repair that offensive line, and especially who comes in as offensive coordinator. I think those two things are going to have a big factor in whether David Montgomery returns next season, because, again, he's a starting caliber running back in this league, which I'm glad Brad Holmes had alluded to. And the one thing you do not want to have is a disgruntled player in the locker room who is just not happy. Mm-hmm. And if you're able to go ahead and move on from him and put him in a better position, that also does look good on the Lions as well, because you're also showcasing to other players that, hey, if it doesn't work out here, even if we have another contract, we'll go ahead and do our best to put you in the best situation if it's not here.
Yeah, you know, he pretty much just said, and I'm going to play you the clip on David Montgomery here in a second, like, he deserves to get touches. He didn't get them here. We didn't plan for it to be that way, but this is a guy that deserves to get touches. And his extension hasn't even kicked in yet. Like that's the weirdest part of this. His extension hasn't even kicked in yet. He played 3 more games this season than he did last year and had 27 less carries. Still had 8 touchdowns and 716 yards, averaging 4.5 per carry, which was higher than him, in line with the 2023 numbers. But with Jahmyr Gibbs' takeoff, it's clear that, like, this is not the RB 1A, 1B situation it was before this season, and that's not coming back. You know, Gibbs isn't giving that up, and if you're going to extend a running back before that extension is even kicked in and you're not really using him like I know it's not like a world bank breaking deal, but like you still committed future assets to this player, and he kind of like clearly got phased out a little bit more than any of us really expected. Even with me clamoring the drum of Gibbs needs more, I figured they would still find spots for Montgomery, but those spots were just kind of hit or miss this season. But here's a take on this. I think that will come into light when they make an offensive coordinator hire, and we'll be able to kind of glean from that person's past. We'll obviously probably won't talk to the new offensive coordinator until the combine. But that's just kind of the way it goes. But yeah, Montgomery's still a productive player, but it definitely got weird at the end of the season. You guys saw his social media. I was getting tagged on it left and right. I mean, he was clearly frustrated with his role this season, and this was like the most honest answer I think we got. Not saying Brad was up there lying or anything. I just think the most information gleaned came from this response here. Everything else was kind of, well, we're always hungry. We're always trying to do that. Blah, 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 blah. We did this. It just didn't work. I think what he said about Montgomery was the most honest thing he said. So here's Brad Holmes and David Montgomery.
Yeah, look, obviously I know that there was a tough year for him in terms of the lack of touches, and I'm not going to say that we went into it planning for it to be that way. I thought he handled it like a pro, and so look, those are discussions that we're going to have a lot more in depth in terms of like what is the best plan for him going forward. Is it somewhere else or whatever the case be, but just really appreciate everything that he has done for us. If it does end up going that way, I hope it doesn't, because we love David Montgomery. He's a good football player, and wish we would have been able to get more utilization from him. I know Dan feels the same way, but those are conversations that we're going to have because got a lot of respect for that player. He deserves to be in a situation where his skill set can be utilized, and so we'll love it for it to be here. But if it can't be here, then you would have to just see which you can work out the best for him.
Brad, yeah, as you can see, like, there's conversations to be had. I mean, that wasn't committal towards the future. That was committal towards, we got to figure this out.
And it's as honest as you can get without giving away everything. You can't give up too much. No. So I thought that was probably the best answer Brad could have given about David Montgomery. He didn't try to play anybody like they were stupid. He just said, we know what the situation is.
Yeah, which is fair. It is fair. I mean, I appreciate Brad for saying, I love David Montgomery. I want him here. I do think that door is still open, but I do think we need to see who this OC hire is going to be. Obviously, this is our first time recording since John Morton got parted ways with, as the Lions said, since John Morton got fired as offensive coordinator. The two names that have come to light as candidates the Lions are interested in are David Blau and Mike McDaniel, the recently, as of today, fired Miami Dolphins coach.
I would say this real quick. First off, about David Montgomery, just the Lions offense works best when he gets touches and when he's involved, and they're going to have to I just hope that they can figure that offensive line out and be able to get him to stay on, because you're still going, if you move on from David, you're still going to need another dynamic back to split those carries with Jahmyr Gibbs. And I would just, you got one in the building, repair that relationship, repair that situation as best as possible. But to the point about the coordinators, David Blau, I mean, even before he went over to the Commanders, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I heard whispers around here about how brilliant he was as an offensive mind and his approach to the game. So him getting at least an interview and being brought in, that just does make sense. He knows the offense, he knows the players, he knows the coaches, so the continuity's there. He's a younger guy that could probably just connect with the relationship that he has and be able to articulate what Dan wants probably better than anybody. But then when you go over and look to Mike McDaniel, I just think that first off, what an aggressive move. I'm talking about literally hours away from the news of him being fired by the Miami Dolphins. 5 or 6 hours later, now the reports that they reached out to him, that just goes to show you that they know that they have to go ahead and fix this thing in the building. And Mike McDaniel, head coach, didn't really work out for, I have my own reasons why I think it didn't work out, Tua. But
me too.
but he's regarded as an offensive genius. The things that I think that he could dial up with this Lions offense, I mean, he could come in and do such a good job that Dan might be replacing him within another year or two. Something that Dan kind of sounded a little bit leery about the other day. But again, at least for right now, I like that they're just not committed to who they're familiar with.
Mm-hmm. I see people like, oh, McDaniel's never worked with Campbell before. I'm like, maybe that's good. Maybe a fresh voice is needed.
Yeah.
Maybe an outside offensive expert like that is needed with new ideas. I mean, Dan Campbell worked pretty well with Ben Johnson on that evolution. Let Ben take the floor and run with it. I mean, took what Dan Campbell had as an offense and just evolved it and continued putting his own spin on it. Now, with someone like McDaniel, especially with an offense like the Lions, you'd be looking over your shoulder expecting him to get interviews every offseason.
Yeah.
And this is how I kind of look at the OC candidates as it is right now. Blau and McDaniel. You've got tier 1. Campbell's going to continue calling the plays. I think if they hire David Blau, Campbell would continue calling the plays. You're not hiring Mike McDaniel if he can't call the plays. So I'm really curious. Here's what Holmes said he's looking for. Priorities for the team's next offensive coordinator. Leadership. And the second one was the most important to me because that is what they were missing. Ben Johnson is like the most detail-oriented, fixated on every little small thing in his offense as possible. And I think they lost that with John Morton a little bit this year. Brad Holmes said they have to be detail-oriented. They've got to have a command of the room. They've got to know how to dot every I and cross every T.
I think those first two candidates that they're talking to are guys that could fit that mold.
Yeah, I do too. They know what type of leader Blau is. They know him. They know his offensive mind. Goff, that would be an interesting hire just because this is someone Goff has specifically worked with, not just as a coach, but as a player.
Yeah.
David knows Jared. That was his job, to know Jared and what he likes and what he doesn't like. That's why I'm like, this is not charity. This is not helping a former friend out. No, this is a legit candidate.
And this is a guy that the Commanders also blocked from getting interviews from other teams.
Yep.
And a guy that they're probably trying to retain as they're going through their own little bit of turmoil over there. So I just say that I think right now that it's good to have a little bit of mix of everything. Have some guys that you are familiar with in that candidacy pool. Have some guys that you're not familiar with. Cast that search wide and get different perspectives because who knows? Here's the one thing I see from fans that are just so fixated on Mike McDaniel. Again, nothing wrong with that at all. I'm just of the mindset of somebody said, I want to take this from somebody who comments on my post. Date as many people as you can right now. And then after you get the one that you're feeling,
I do.
Then maybe you go on a second date.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing wrong with fresh ideas. And the same thing I said about Dable goes for McDaniel. Dan Campbell doesn't do joint practices with nobody.
Yeah.
Dan Campbell doesn't do joint practices with head coaches he doesn't trust.
Yeah.
So it'd be nobody has done more with less in terms of offensive line than Mike McDaniel. Like, I like that. I like his creativity. I like how he uses his speed wide receivers. The idea of Jamison Williams and a Mike McDaniel offense with a freaking precise killer like Amon-Ra St. Brown and real Tesla, NFL quarterback.
And then Tesla.
And then the idea of Laporta being back. Laporta, we got to talk Laporta. I know we're scattered today because that's what type of podcast is. We're covering the topics that have been thrown at us over the last 4 days. Laporta was in line with Campbell and saying he thinks he'll be ready for training camp, hopes to be up and around running some. But the nerve is feeling better. But there's just so many pieces here to work with. Go nuts about McDaniel. If they made that hire, I would have zero complaints. The questions would just be about how he's going to mesh philosophically with Dan Campbell.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I'm just wondering about. Yeah. I mean, you're kind of dealing with polar opposites, but again, that could be a blessing in disguise.
Absolutely. The fact that news came, like you said, hours after McDaniel got fired.
This the fact. Yeah, this the fact that came. If it would have came like tomorrow, like Saturday or Monday, like okay, they're serious. The day of that means that again, you said he doesn't do joint practices with anybody. That to me just goes to show you how much he respects Mike McDaniel.
Absolutely, I really think so too. Now we got to focus on most of our time with Brad was spent talking about the offensive line and Taylor Decker and Frank Ragnow. We did learn Frank Ragnau let the Lions know he was going to retire in late May.
Yeah.
So, you know what? Brad said there were breadcrumbs here and there, things that made you think, oh, we might not have this guy. But then the decision came in late May, well after the draft. And, he pretty much said we did our best.
And I think with the breadcrumbs thing, I think that's particularly interesting. I mean, hindsight is always 2020. You could say, well, because you got breadcrumbs, you should have went and made a move. But now that I think that they went through that situation with the breadcrumbs, and you're kind of seeing some of the breadcrumbs with Taylor Decker, I don't think they'll find themselves in that position again. I don't think one thing I've seen about them is that on certain situations, they don't allow themselves to get burned twice.
Yeah, no. And I asked Dan Campbell this on Monday, and I asked Brad Holmes this today. Like, what lessons did you learn? Taylor Decker's openly contemplating retirement. There were breadcrumbs with Ragnau before he let you know. You can't. My question was basically like, you can't bank on him just being here, right? And Dan said, there were absolutely lessons learned. And Brad kind of said, it'll take urgency if Decker does retire, but like, we've never not tried to address the offensive line. The one thing that I see fans kind of grabbing onto and complaining about is we don't want to hear about all the moves you thought about making. And I think that's kind of fair too, like, oh, all the moves you tried to make. Oh, that's great. The moves you did make, Giovanni Manu, Brad said it would be irresponsible to view him as the next man up with Decker. He's going to have to earn his spot. That was a 4th-round pick you traded up for.
Again, I think the irresponsible part kind of plays back a little bit loosely to what Dan said about, hey, we need to bring in competition for these guys.
Yeah. I mean, they need competition at center. They need competition at guard. They need to start thinking towards the future at tackle. And I'm just going to let you guys hear Brad Holmes' response to my question. With the Decker stuff going on, what they learned from Ragnau and how they're viewing the offensive line moving forward. We want you guys to hear from Brad too. So that's why we're going to have Patrick Works of Magic and loop him into here too. So here's Brad Holmes on what lessons could be learned from Ragnau's retirement with Taylor Decker considering the same option.
It's never been ignored. It's like, it's going to come at some point. As good of, let's call it more veteran offensive line that we've had in the past that has been comprised of a lot of good players, at one point, 4 first-round picks at one point. It's never been ignored, but, you just can't reach and just make a move just to make a move. You can reach for a tackle or just make a move for a tackle, and that player is just not as good enough of a replacement. But no, that's definitely, I'm not sure what what Decker's going to decide to do, but that's not only will it have to be urgent this offseason, but it's been urgent in the past. Look, we drafted 2 years ago, we drafted Manu as more of a developmental guy, thinking that, he's going to have some years to take some steps forward. But it would be irresponsible for us to just go into it thinking that, we drafted a developmental player a couple of years ago. He's going to be the guy. And I don't think, I could be wrong, but I don't think that we've ever kind of gone into an offseason with a question mark or a hole, and we didn't attack that position with urgency. But sometimes it just doesn't work out as well as we want to.
What part of the offseason did you learn that Frank was retiring?
Oh, I heard 2 Franks, so go ahead.
I'm just wondering, at what point in the offseason did you learn that Frank was retiring?
It was after the draft. That was when he officially told us that, I'm not going to do it. I can't remember. It may have been some point in late May or something like that, but that's when he gave us the final stop. Now, not saying that the thoughts weren't swirling, it's not saying that there was no breadcrumbs or anything like that, but and even with breadcrumbs of it, but not knowing exactly what he was going to do, again, it was something that we knew that we needed to prepare for because we didn't know which way it was going to tip.
Brad, have you guys maintained contact with Frank since the failed physical, and is there any chance that he gets healthy and attempts another comeback for next season?
No, after that whole thing, we just kind of went our separate ways. I'm sure a lot of the guys still, keep contact with him, but no, just nothing in concrete about, seeing if he wants to give it a go again.
Yeah, as I said, Brad's not the most committal person in the world during these press conferences, and I get it. He doesn't have all the answers right now. I mean, shoot, what was it, 4 or 5 days ago we were covering a game in Chicago, so I get it. I do like the word urgency. I do like the honesty with Manu, because that's going to be year 3 for Manu. Already year 3, and it still sounds like he's very well in the developmental phase.
Yeah, and right now, I don't want to say that the window is closing, but I will say a word he used, urgency. The urgency to go ahead and capitalize on these core players being in their prime, I think there is some urgency in that.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah, there is. There is.
There has to be. So I do believe that they're still kind of like, they're still obviously reeling a little bit from everything that happened, but just hearing what Dan said on Monday, hearing what Brad said today, there does, whether I hope fans are just kind of comprehending what's said or reading between the lines, there does seem to be a level of accountability there where they know they're going to have to go ahead and do some things differently.
Yeah, I mean, Dan gave himself a freaking F, quote unquote, for the season. Brad didn't say freaking F just to copy Dan, but he said, obviously it's a failing grade, because I'm here talking to you guys while football's being played. And I think that's, he was humble. I mean, he kind of apologized to the fans and swore it's going to get back on track, said all the right things about looking inward and everything starts with him. And honestly, it does. It does start with him, because this is the first time in his and Campbell's tenure that they've fell short of expectations.
Yeah, I mean, there was an ascension to a degree up, last year we know what happened with the injuries and whatnot, but there was always an ascension. And now to kind of, if they went to the playoffs and got knocked out, it still would have been.
It would have still been this.
It still would have been. It still would have been this. But the fact that they didn't make the playoffs, it's a real okay, we gotta pause this and get this back on track before we slip back any further.
Yeah.
We got to nip this in the bud now.
Yeah, and this is what Brad said. I'll just read it for you. And really, that's probably the only light that may come out of this darkness. When you have these kind of results, you don't have a choice. You're forced to look at everything long and hard and truthful and honestly, all in efforts to improve our football team and just kind of recalibrate this thing to play more consistent football. I know that's kind of a blanket statement there, but him and Campbell are great at saying all the right things. They really are. And I do think Brad took the right approach today. He wasn't defensive. He wasn't all fired up. He wasn't wearing a customized hoodie. He wasn't, it was just all right, let's do this thing. This season sucked. We fell short of expectations, couldn't really consistently get it going. And there were questions about injuries. There were questions about extensions. And that's kind of where we'll go next is Gibbs and Campbell. Jack Campbell, that is, viewed as priority extensions this offseason. They don't have to wait around on those two guys. Like, when it comes to Branch and Laporta, they need more medical information.
Honestly, when he said that, that kind of let me know again, he really gets what's going on here.
Yeah.
Because it's no offense to Laporta or Branch. It's the fact that when you're dealing with a back injury with one guy, when you're dealing with another guy that's going to be coming off an Achilles tear, let's just keep it honest. Not many players come back to their normal self after an Achilles injury.
Yeah.
The fact that he was realistic and measured in his response should be, I don't want to say good for fans, but it should at least let you know that he understands that he can't pay everybody. He has to look at these two a little bit differently.
Yeah, and he kind of said what we've been saying on the pod all season. Gibbs and Jack Campbell are your top priorities. Yep. I mean, they were the two top priorities before the injuries happened.
Mm-hmm.
He straight up said, I do think the priorities for those players have not changed, but obviously more medical information has to be gathered when asked about Branch and Laporta. And then he kind of spoke about, are you able to save money and spend more in free agency if you don't have to extend them with Gibbs and Campbell and the other guys? And he said, well, money spent is money spent. So I think that's a takeaway. Don't expect these Lions to be ultra aggressive in free agency. I think Holmes even said some of these moves that we make might not even be headline worthy. So do not expect a full on frontal aggression in free agency. I would say expect more of the same in the draft too. He is not a needs-based drafter. He is a fit and personality-based drafter and gut feel.
Yeah.
A lot of his swings and misses have been on gut feel guys like Martin and Hooker and Manu. I hate to, but like we're going into year 3 with your tackle retiring and he's not anywhere ready and you're calling it irresponsible to announce him as the potential starter. And unless something drastic happens, I don't see much changing there. But they trust in their process. They trust in the players that they target. They kind of got asked about injury history and stuff like that, and they trust their training staff too. I mean, both of them kind of complimented the training staff and just said stuff happens.
I will say this: I do think that they could be aggressive. I honestly think that they do not want to tip their cap in any direction because it would be irresponsible to say, like, come out there and say, hey, we need this, this, and then boom, agents, other teams you're probably trying to look at doing deals with, they're going ahead and trying to take liberties because you've openly stated that this is what we need, this is what we're going to go after. I still kind of think with him, he's correct. He's not going to go out and start making these. He's not about to go Howie Roseman on everything. But I do think that when it comes to addressing that offensive line, I just have a feeling he's going to be somewhat aggressive. And then as far as the other holes, and they just may be some of the, more, I guess you could say, not appealing headlines, but guys that fit their culture.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to take some cap creativity to get there because as we're looking right here on Over the Cap, 20th in the NFL in cap space, 21st in effective cap space, those $1 billion in extensions with 2 more coming, that's going to take money. There's going to have to be some restructuring. There's going to have to be some tough decisions because there's a lot of needs, man. You need tight end depth. You need safety depth. I mean, I know he liked Daniel Thomas and Avonte Maddox. I'd like to see both those guys back, but I think you need a little more. You don't know Branch. And that does lead us into what I wanted to talk about in this regard is Kerby Joseph's knee. A lot more optimistic from Brad than the last time we talked to Kerby.
Yeah.
Kind of described it as why it took so long for Kerby to go on IR, even though he missed every game after the bye week and the game going into the bye week when we were told, we hope this thing calms down after the bye week. There were bits and pieces of improvement along the way, but then a setback. And then the last setback was it, and that's why he landed on IR. Now, Brad straight up said he's hopeful that this offseason and the fact that Kerby isn't rushing to urgently get back on the field tomorrow will give him the proper time to heal.
And that's honestly what I read into the whole Kerby being down during the season is the fact that he was so desperately trying to get back and he knew that he couldn't because without Kerby Joseph in that secondary, look, the Lions are significantly worse.
Yes.
And him knowing that he could not get back out there as much as of a competitor that he is, that probably put him in a bad spot. He probably, and again, like Brad said, he was rushing hard to come back, and it was just setback after setback. I mean, heck, with Frank, he was trying to come back, boom, setback. So I think it's just something when you're really trying to get out there, and as they like to call each other brothers, play for your brothers, and you just cannot give it a go. That probably just did something to him in that moment. Maybe he knew that, okay, long term, I sit down, I get myself together, I'll be good. But I know that me not being out there hinders our chances at making the playoffs or doing something significant.
I mean, Kerby is one of the best ball hawking defensive backs in the league. He still had 3 picks in the 6 games he played this season on a bum knee because these issues were nagging him since training camp. He is what he is. When they lost Brian Branch, the whole defense fell off a cliff. The run defense fell off a cliff. They lost their Swiss Army knife type guy. I mean, those guys are freaking vital to the defense.
Absolutely.
Just vital. I've already made this call. I think the Branch extension gets kicked down the road as far as possible. They love the player. They know who he is, but we're at a point. We're $1 billion into extensions. You can't have more Kerby situations where you sign an extension and all of a sudden you have a chronic knee injury. He said that was the thing I'm surprised hasn't taken off is when he got asked about Kirby's knee and the physical before he signed his deal. It was like, oh, you're not going to find everything. And I'm just like, oh, you need to because you also re-signed Levi Onwuzurike, who had a torn ACL.
Right. I was like immediately after. I'm like, how?
Yeah, just as the assets as the margin of error with assets and what you have available to shrinks, you got to find everything. Yeah. You've got to. So Branch and Laporta, figure it out. Make sure they're built for the long haul because you got a lot of other mouths to feed. And I will say this, and then we'll kind of freestyle it to end. Brad did say we're definitely going to have to look and replenish the opposite side of Hutch for sure. After a full offseason spent on edge rusher questions, and I already alluded to earlier, he did do the drink line saying we had 2 double-digit sack guys. I don't know how many other teams had 2 of those, but Muhammad's a free agent. Pascal's a free agent. Anzarike's a free agent. Davenport's a free agent. The only edge rushers under roster technically right now are Aiden Hutchinson and Ahmed Hassanin on a futures deal.
And
with a whole ton of offensive line needs.
Yeah, and again, I said this before. I think that Muhammad played himself out of Detroit, and I mean that, and of course, in a good way for him. In a good way for him. I think that somebody is going to give him a significant deal to do what he does best: go rush the passer. If the Lions are able to get him back on a very team-friendly deal,
which he said he wouldn't take,
which I mean, that would be great. But again, hey, can you blame him? I mean,
no, not at all.
I mean, it's such a violent game, and these guys have really a shelf life on how long they're able to play this game. So if he's able to parlay this season into a significant bag elsewhere, hey, more power to him. But yes, they're gonna have to do something about getting somebody opposite Hutchinson. And I'm gonna be honest, it cannot be bringing any of those guys back. It can't be bringing back Levi. It can't be bringing back Davenport. It can't be bringing back Pascal because what you have seen from them in their time here is that they cannot consistently be relied on to be healthy. Maybe somewhere else it might work out for them, but for here, you have enough tape, you have enough evidence that shows you need to go in a different direction.
Yeah, Muhammad essentially said on Locker Room Cleanout Day, I took a pay cut, or I took a team-friendly deal this year. I'm not doing that again. And he's earned it. He's 31, just had an 11 half-sack season. And for what he would cost and what the Lions need, I just don't see those stars aligning because, he's not a good run defender. And if you pay him, all of a sudden you're strapped even more trying to find an inside-outside guy. I will say, I'm out on Davenport. I was out on Davenport last year. The fact that he played as much as he did this year and had only 1 sack and 7 pressures, it's done. I don't care how cheap the deal would be. He needs a new home if he even finds one. It can't be here. Pascal, he never turned into the fit they thought he was. He's not that pocket crushing edge. He's a hole filling inside outside presence. If it's cheap, whatever, try it. The one guy I would bring back, and I'm fully prepared for hate mail on this one, is Levi Anzarike. I just think if his knee's right, if he's healthy, if he's right, what he did as a pass rushing interior defensive lineman who can play big defensive end, he'll be cheap after yet missing his second season since they drafted him. He'll be cheap. It'll be even more team friendly than it appeared last year. I would bring him back, but kind of with how they should have with Davenport, except they viewed Davenport as the answer. Bring Levi back, but don't view him as the answer.
Yeah, if you want to just bring him back.
I view Davenport as the answer.
If you bring Levi back as a depth piece and you're signing him to a really
just
friendly
here's
deal,
your last chance, pal.
Yeah, that's fine. But with Pascal and Davenport, I just don't see how you can trust either one long term.
Gosh.
Even not even long term.
For one more year. For tomorrow. Yeah, exactly. Oh, gosh. It's the offensive line. The offensive line it's been the priority all season for us talking, and it has to be their priority this offseason because they need a starting center. And if they move Tate, they need a starting guard. They already need more guard depth. I think they need to bring in real competition for Mahogany's starting spot.
Yeah.
He cannot go into next season as a no doubt locked in, unchallenged starter. That's unacceptable. And now you have to prepare for the short and long-term future at tackle. Because even if Decker's back, he went through hell this season. And I said it when we talked to him in Chicago, which was somehow only 4 or 5 days ago. I don't think he's coming back.
Yeah, it's just the way that he's talked about what it's done to him mentally, what it's done to his family, what he's had to go through to even play. I mean, there was, like I said earlier on a podcast I was on, there were points during this season where Decker was not even practicing. He was just suiting up for games.
Yeah.
And you're not necessarily wanting to push him out the door, but whether he comes back or not, that is going to have to be a real need that you take care of, whether it's through free agency, whether it's through a trade, or whether it's through the draft. Who knows? Just spitballing here.
Yeah.
Maybe there is a team that's willing to give you something for Montgomery. You may be able to get parlay something out of that, and
I don't see anything more than a 5th or 6th round pick.
So I mean, I'm just probably not, but you're gonna have to figure out. You're gonna have to get creative.
It's gonna take some creativity because they need to create some cap space because tackles aren't cheap and centers aren't cheap. I know everybody's talking about Tyler Linderbaum from the Ravens, but that ain't gonna be cheap. That's going to take some magic, and your magic salary cap guy, Mike Disner, just interviewed for a position with the Atlanta Falcons today. I know that's Matt Ryan's expected to be job, but Disner is someone who gets attention around the league. We saw it last year, I believe, too, and that is their salary cap guru. So that's another potential loss to track there. Oh, goodness. I mean, I know Brad isn't a needs-based draft guy, but they need – the first and second round almost have to be offensive linemen.
Yeah, because
have to be.
Because the other holes, I do believe that you could fill with some solid veterans out there. If you're pending how much you're able to free up in the cap as far with through restructuring of some deals or whatnot. But I definitely think you have to go long term. Think about getting like the center or getting the tackle or the guard, just one of those two. Because, I mean, if you're able to get Linderbaum from the Ravens, that's cool.
It'd be sick.
It'll be great. But is that something that you really want to put all your eggs into?
I mean, it would be that kind of deal. It was like, all right, free agency's done. I don't even know how they'd pull that one off. I know a lot of people don't think the salary cap is real, but you're about to find out how wrong you were in these coming years.
Yeah, because they see what the Eagles are doing, and I'm like, hey, they're going to get hit at one point.
Look at the Saints paying for their sins for these last 5 years or whatever it is. So you don't want to be that route, and I don't think they are anywhere close to that, but they're careful and they're conservative in free agency and at the trade deadline for a reason. That's about it. It wasn't the WWE-style promo many of you have come to expect. It was exactly what I expected today. Humble, non-committal. Here's a couple news items. So hopefully you hung in with us. We're going to leave you with a quote on Brad on his discussions with owner Sheila Ford Hamp and just kind of his expectations and knowing what they are. But we're probably going to take a break next week. I'm going to get out of town for a couple of days, and then we'll circle back the next week, and we'll either do a hybrid mailbag or just a normal podcast on what's going on. I'm sure there will be an offensive coordinator search that's maybe completed by then, so we'll see. We'll see, but this was a little scattered. These are always a little scattered. You know, we're talking about a 40-minute press conference and trying to put our thoughts and analysis into things, but thanks for hanging with us. This is the last day we'll be in Allen Park for a very long time.
It's crazy.
Last day of school coming on January 8th this year. Kind of wild, man. Like Brad Holmes, it's hard not to think about this season being a complete and utter F of a failure when he's here talking to us on January 8th and the wild card round hasn't even started yet.
That's just from the makeup of this team and what they've done over the past couple of years. That's wild.
The standard has changed. Going 9-8 is no longer good enough. Brad and Holmes and Dan Campbell were responsible for that standard and the bar being raised. Yep. And now they have to live with those expectations because this is a vital, crucial, pressure is all the way turned up off season because there are real holes to fill and they're getting harder and harder to fill. But here's Brad Holmes on what his discussion with Lions owner Sheila Ford Hamp was after the season. And we'll catch you guys on the flip side. Thanks for listening. We're MLive's Dungeon of Doom podcast. I'm Ben Raven. He's Kory Woods.
Always the hope is to get to a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl. That's not changed going forward this year. That was obviously the goal the past couple of years. So that still remains. And it's not only I don't even need to hear that from her. You know, I'm the one that's on my mind constantly is, you know, having the ability to put that trophy in her hands. So I don't sleep well at night unless that happens. And she's aware of that. But yeah, we've had conversations, and she's always, the great thing about her is she's always consistent. Yeah, we'll just keep the details private.